don't go out and get these absolute Mount Staunchmore of the Rangers men, and it's just absolutely ridiculous.
I keep sort of stumbling over my words because I'm stopping myself saying things like astonishing, hilarious, unbelievable.
You are in for potentially months of pain here. Months of pain. You've still got to play Celtic, albeit you've got Jose Mourinho coming up. Well. What a week. I am Jamie, I'm joined by Melly.
Oh, yes.
And Stephen.
Wow, what a week indeed.
Oh, well, usually we postpone the podcast. The last couple of weeks we've postponed the podcast in case any breaking news happens after the podcast. But Rangers, thankfully, got the breaking news out the way. Stephen, Brendan claimed another one.
He did, yeah. He's claimed another scalp. This time a clean one, clean scalp. But all of that has faded into the background when it came to today's, as we record this Monday night, today's news, which is I'm actually wondering, this can't be real.
No.
None of it can possibly be real. If you had asked me to joke about what Rangers would do after they sack a manager, it's something along the lines of this I would have come up with. And even at that, I would have thought, no, that's ridiculous. I'm going to pull back on that a little bit and have them appoint a real manager rather than just the staunch Avengers. It is absolutely astonishing that they've done this. And to the point where I'm like, can this season possibly get any better? Yeah. Trebles, Champions League, making a mark in Europe, yada, right? But Rangers have sacked an albeit floundering manager, and he had to go, right? Of course it was the right
decision. Did he have to go because it was stick to the plan 3 days ago or whatever it was?
What's beyond untenable?
Yeah, unalivenable. But it is, they've sacked a floundering manager. It should have been done ages ago, right? But let's not forget, he was a proper football manager and he had won leagues in other countries. He had won a trophy here. They've got rid of this guy and brought in a bunch of Bears.
They brought in a stag do.
Yeah, it's exactly a stag do. It is incredible. I defy you to come up with a better list of, like, if you were to joke about it, if you were to ask.
So we can run through the list, but if you watch Sports Scene or listen to Go Radio, then I'm sorry to say that your broadcasts are going to be down a few presenters.
They've performed an audacious, daring swoop on Go Radio for their manager, which is absolutely, again,
Go Radio probably does less numbers than this podcast.
Yeah. So we do a fortnightly podcast on our Patreon that's called the Friday Phone, and we quite often get posed wee teasers like that. If you were to put together your ideal Rangers backroom staff, what would it be like? And we'd probably throw around a couple of ideas.
This has probably been named on one occasion.
Yeah, we'd probably throw around a couple of ideas and come up with exactly that. Maybe save for your Nacho Novas or your Bomber Browns, there or thereabouts.
Because Ray's already been ruled out, hasn't he? 'Cause he's out.
It's unbelievable.
Can I just tell you, and we know it's true, right? And this is not, poking fun at the dead, but were Walter Smith still alive, he absolutely would be Rangers manager today. That's the thought processes these guys have got. Like the sack Clement, he was useless, and I know that Giovanni gets sacked because he didn't get it, right? And I don't really know what that meant, because he looked to me like a guy that got it. He played for Rangers. Yeah, we all know what it meant. He won things and he took them to a European final, and he didn't get it, even though he played for Rangers for years and was part of Rangers' most successful dynasty. Right? So they
signed off his text, WATP as well.
Yeah, he signed off his text, "We are the people." So then they got then he got Michael Beale in, and everyone knew what Michael Beale was immediately. He was a fraud. Then they got Philippe Clement in, who was, as Stephen says, like a bona fide manager.
Man of substance.
A man of substance. They got him in. And obviously it was clear for ages that he didn't get it. And I think the allegation that was wrongly put to Gio about him not getting it was absolutely put right for Philippe Clement. He didn't get it. He didn't understand the environment he was managing in. Some of his comments after games were bizarre. He tried to excuse things away when they were clearly inexcusable. It was quite painful watching the guy try and keep up this facade of competence when it just wasn't working out for him. But you're always like, when Rangers sack their manager, there's always that, right, who are they going to get in now? What's the next move? And you're as a Celtic fan, you're looking down the line thinking, well, what does this mean for Celtic? Because there are big name managers out of work, and the law of averages suggests that Rangers can't get it wrong all the time. They can't repeatedly make terrible decisions. They're in the Cleveland Steamers are talking about taking over them. No, it's what is it? It's the San Francisco 69ers.
55ers.
The 56ers, right?
The minus 13ers.
So they're talking about getting a takeover. So you think to yourself, right, this could be dodgy times for Celtic. They could appoint someone competent. And then they get in Barry Ferguson, Neil McCann, Billy Dodds and Alan McGregor. And I'm just left thinking, that's not a decision that anybody with any degree of competency makes. It's pure fan service.
Yeah.
It's Tony Stark coming back for the dead in Iron Man.
It's Michael Keaton's Batman.
It's Michael Keaton's Batman. And as you say, Stephen, there's like, well, they've got Barry Ferguson, who last managed Celtic Hearts.
Barry Ferguson's the least experienced manager out the three managers that are there. Billy Dodds and Neil McCann. They've all got a better CV than Barry Ferguson.
And then Alan McGregor, that we can gather, they binned a proper bona fide
goalkeeping
coach who presumably had a job there at Rangers that he was doing all right at, right? I have no sympathy for him, but they binned him for Alan McGregor, who, as far as you can gather, hasn't done a single day of coaching of any note since he retired for Rangers. It's banter year stuff.
Oh, it goes beyond that at this point. It's unbelievable. The McGregor thing is the most egregious. I think that's unbelievable. The McGregis.
Did you say unbelievable?
Yes, it is. That really is. Like, we just flood the place with staunchness. That it really is. That it couldn't be more transparent to go out and, as I say, like, on one hand, they had the best goalkeeper in Britain. Remember the guy who was on the cusp of the Euro squad, Jack Butland.
Gareth Southgate watching.
Yeah, the arrogant Gareth Southgate looking down on Scottish football. That's the only reason he didn't pick Jack Butland for the Euros. We've gone from that, a goalkeeping coach behind all that sort of setup, to Alan McGregor, which is honestly, I keep sort of stumbling over my words because I'm stopping myself saying things like astonishing, hilarious, unbelievable, but I'm saying them over and over again because that's literally what it is.
It's mental, really, isn't it, Melly? There's nothing of any. I know we joke about Philippe Clement being a man of substance, and I know it's only a temporary appointment, but it's like news flash to any Rangers fans watching this. It's a long time. Like that, you are in for potentially months of pain here. Months of pain. You've still got to play Celtic, albeit you've got Jose Mourinho coming up in a couple of weeks. You're out of the Scottish Cup, that's fine, but there's at least 2 Glasgow derbies left, and you've got to watch us lift trophies, and you still have football games to win in between times.
But the standards will be upheld, though, James. It's all about that.
Suits and brown brogues.
Yes.
And they've got an assistant manager there who just joined, who, I don't know what's going to happen to him, the Moroccan guy. He's part of the new management team, but when a new clique, that's it. When a new clique comes in, and they're just going to sort of shuffle that guy to the side. You'd expect it's a very bizarre thing, Millie. But I had a Rangers fan tweet me today when I was sort of having a good old yuck up about it, and he says, "Well, it's no different from Celtic bringing in Neil Lennon," and I thought it is. It's very different.
It is very different, and what happened when Neil Lennon was brought back? We weren't happy because we thought the standards had dropped so much from Brendan Rodgers to Neil Lennon. We thought, why are we going back to this? Surely we have other ideas. Whereas on the other side, they're completely happy with this. And I know not all of them will be happy. One of my mates texted me today saying, "This is a bad dream." And I said, "This is paradise, mate. I'm coming here on a Monday night after Celtic have went out the Champions League in the last second. They've been beat at the weekend. And I'm happy as Larry sitting on here talking about this because, as you said, Stephen, I genuinely couldn't have picked better than this. When I seen that he was getting the Dan Mack last night, I was gutted. I was like, this isn't good, man. I love the guy in there. He just, man of substance, utter ridiculousness. Then a couple of hours later, he comes through, Barry Ferguson. I was like, just burst out laughing. Like, please do this. I thought they would have seen sense in giving the assistant manager the role until the end of the season.
Even Big Dunk would have made more sense because that was the first rumour I saw. That was the first rumour.
Barry Ferguson, it's just, he's been at this for years trying to get there. He's now here. And like, all I can think of, this could be a disaster. Then I'm like, wait a minute. See if he does all right apart from the Celtic games, he might get the job full time. So I'm a wee bit torn again on that. But it's just, I said it to my mate, this is not a serious football club, because any serious football club would have said, right, we're sticking to this plan, right, it's become completely untenable. The guy can't stay, so we need to do something here. He's gone. Don't go out and get these absolute Mount Staunchmore of the Rangers, men. And it's just absolutely ridiculous to think that this is the way to go, because the way I look at it now, this time maybe last week it was breaking about Rangers and the 49ers and all that, and you think, oh, do you know what, maybe they'll start to get their stuff in order, maybe towards the summer we'll start to see change, and then before that happens, this happens, and I just be like, I'm pulling out this deal right now because the people here cannot run like this.
I don't think there's any doubt. Like, we can all laugh now because it's frankly an absurd appointment.
Yeah.
They put Barry Ferguson in charge. There's loads of other football managers out there, and it's all this is just really blatant. All I can call it is fan service. Just keep the fans off our back.
He's the worst manager in the league.
Barry Ferguson.
Every
easily.
other manager before him.
Oh,
Yeah, easily. Absolutely.
Season ticket time as well, isn't it?
Season ticket. He's about as unqualified as any manager working at a football club in any of the Scottish leagues, I'd argue.
Which is why I completely reject the Neil Lennon comparison. The
Exactly
only
why,
the only way this is in any way comparable to Neil Lennon is if we'd sacked Neil Lennon. If Neil Lennon was the outgoing manager, and what we did was we brought in Peter Grant, Pat Bonner, Tom Boyd, Paul the Tim. That was the background stuff. That's the only way that is in any way related to Neil Lennon, is if we got rid of a previously successful manager and just flooded the place with Tims.
What was it? How many Rangers managers forget Brendan Rodgers, how many Rangers managers have we witnessed in the lifetime of this podcast?
Oh. So we started off with Warbs, didn't we?
Yep.
Then we went on to Pedro.
Gerrard
after that.
We've had a few interims. We've had Murty and Davis.
Yep, yeah. Murty gets sacked from his interim, I'm sure, as well. Then we had Gio, we had Beale, and we've just had the man of substance in there. So a bit of everything. And if we keep going over this, somebody said today, but the standards will be raised now. I'm like, what does that mean? Because the standards are on the floor anyway, because you don't have a good football coach in the place. Is bringing these guys in going to solve that? I don't think so. I watched Neil McCann on Sports Scene on Saturday night absolutely rip apart what Rangers were doing. There was a point where Jack Butland gets the ball and just shells it away. St Mirren get a chance from it. He's saying, because the players aren't moving, have the board just watched that and went, yeah, he knows what he's talking about, we'll get him in and then see where we're going?
These discussions have been going on for months. I reckon
this is what they've come up with.
No, I mean the discussions between all the Rangers, sort of your Fergusons and your McGregors and your Dodds. That manoeuvring has been going on for months.
Kevin Thompson passed over again.
Oh my God, man!
What's he done? His phone like that.
He's like, the battery did this thing. He can't open his mouth one more time, Kevin. No. I think that's it. It's mortifying for Kevin Thompson. Look, we can all sit here and have a laugh, and by God, we're going to have one. We never expected that, but it does mean that Celtic sort of once again we're facing a potential Rangers takeover. We're facing a new Rangers manager. They cannot get it wrong all the time, and you would think come the summer when Rangers have. I mean, surely Celtic, Stephen, have to work on the basis, okay, now Rangers are going to get in a good manager. There's plenty of good managers out of work that definitely would take the Rangers job. Whatever we think of Rangers and whatever we see up close, I think that there's still a big name in terms of football, in terms of managers that would probably want to take them over. I remember hearing an interview with Sean Dyche before he took the Everton job. And he said he was in discussions with someone about going to take the Rangers job, and he said he would love to have taken the Rangers job, but just it wasn't right for him at that time. So big names have been associated with the Rangers job. So we can laugh up this Barry Ferguson thing because, everything's clippable these days. Everything we say is clippable. But I would be astonished if that guy won more than half the games that he's in charge of at Rangers. But what that does mean is, come the summer, Rangers are going to represent a fresh challenge for Celtic, and we can't be caught lacking.
No, we always have to look at it like that. I think it's always the safest bet to assume the best / worst. Assume that your opposition are going to get their act together, and then hopefully that brings Celtic on. That's how it should hopefully work. But the Sean Dyche thing and how it comes to like big names, I wonder if that's one of those things you're just asked about, and it's like something we've seen over the years about how former player said, I would love to have signed for Celtic, but the opportunity never came up.
They say that.
The subtext is, but not for that crap money they were offering.
I just one of my pet peeves of supporting Celtic is when you see players like Shea Given and all that. Oh, would I love to play for Celtic? We would have had you at any point in your career, Shea. We would have taken you.
But not for the rubbish money you were offering.
Too busy earning $200,000 a week at Man City or whatever he was on.
So there is that, and of course, like we have to assume that they will get it right. But I've been saying for a long time that we've been doing this for a long time, and they never do. They never do get it right. They always have to sack their manager, and I think the their own worst enemy is themselves, because
It's the fans.
yeah, it's the fans, because they will not accept this. Look, I've got a number of, in all seriousness, I've got a number of problems about the whole Philippe Clement era, right? Because when he came in, all the talk. Do you remember? I don't have the receipts.
It's a man of substance from day one.
So it was a man of
Well,
substance.
so just to clarify that was how he was described by a national newspaper.
Yeah,
journalist.
yeah.
This is not our part, because we've
No,
used
no,
it a lot.
yeah.
You might be thinking, where's that come from?
Yeah.
It was. I think the comment or the headline was, Rangers have appointed a real man of substance.
Yes, so that's my point. I'm talking about the coverage of the whole thing, and that there were even outrageous comparisons to Ange, to Martin O'Neill, to Walter Smith, all that. So it's shades of all these people coming, and this is all within the first few weeks, right? And I'm like, how dare you? Genuinely, how dare you? I've just sort of complained or fought back against ridiculous comparisons to Neil Lennon, but those comparisons are outrageous as well. Ange Postecoglou is a guy who came in, picked Celtic off the ground just about, and turned them into treble winners within 2 seasons. That's who that guy is then? Is that what were you basing that on? And are we going to take this as an opportunity to learn? Are we going to be a wee bit more sensible about it next time?
not.
Or from this point in February until August, are we going to be hearing about war chests, all-out assaults on Title 56? The takeover stuff will add to that as well. But are we going to be hearing about how, look, we're in a bad spot here. We need to build from the ground up. We need to start this club from afresh, from the top down, from the bottom up, whatever way you want to look at it. We're going to have to do all these things, and it might take us a long time to even come close to competing with Celtic.
Do you know the problem
Or is it going to be the complete opposite, and it's all going to be this man of pictures him in the gym and all that, or doing marathons or whatever, whoever it is.
Do you know that the problem they've got is, immediately I find Rangers have got, as Barry Ferguson's got a lot of contacts in the media, all these guys have got a lot of contacts in the media, so right away there'll be pressure to keep these guys in a job. And you know, I don't know, again, it's not for me to figure out how Barry Ferguson MBE's mind works, but what I don't know really. I can understand answering the call, I can understand that.
Aye.
But he's on in absolute hiding here, because one, he's not going to do that well. Obviously, he backs himself and he backs the team, but they're not going to do that well. And two, there is no way anyone's going to take over Rangers and decide to give Barry Ferguson the job. Some American conglomerate coming in and just give it to basically a local coach.
Unless though, look at Birmingham. Birmingham have finally got it right now, so they're doing well after they appointed Chris Davis. But they put Wayne Rooney in at first because he was a big name, because they looked at it, those American, I think they are at Birmingham, the investors all looked at that and thought, do you know what they could do with a Hollywood name, get Wayne Rooney in there.
As well with Barry Robson as well, he done well at Aberdeen, so that they thought, we need to give this guy a job rather than want to give the guy a job.
Solskjaer, Lampard,
Gerrard.
Are we overlooking something here? I just thought about this when you were talking, Jamie. Remember the time when Barry Ferguson went for the interview for the Rangers assistant manager with Pedro Caixinha? Caixinha asked him, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And he said, in your job.
Yes.
Who had the last laugh?
Well, aye.
Barry was right all along.
Well, maybe still Caixinha, because he's down in, he's managing Santos now. He's still managing it a fairly decent level.
That's like that old, I don't know if it's like an urban myth, but the story was that Donald Trump was so insulted that Barack Obama laughed at him for saying that I'm the one thing you can never be as president, and years later he was, and that was his whole motivation for it the entire time. That's Barry.
It could well be, but the thing with last week's takeover is it sort of made me think anyway, you know what, maybe this is what Celtic need, because see this season where it's just sort of procession to the title, we're having a laugh, great as fans, but our worry isn't that as fans, it's what the board think. Do they think, you know what, we'll be all right if we sell this guy? And that's what we don't want to happen, because what we want from Celtic, especially over the past week, is we want to believe we can take that next step in the Champions League. If things had went a wee bit better, if the draw had been kinder, Celtic can get to that last 16. Do we need sort of Rangers posing a bigger threat to us than this? And you think, do you know what, this takeover might actually shake up Celtic, because everybody's people could maybe think, do you know what, we're on course for 10 in a row. But again, with Celtic, if you take Brendan Rodgers away from Celtic, what's left behind? Nothing. So we need to get. We could be feasibly. We could be in this situation where in a year or two's time we'll bring back Neil Lennon because there's no other managers available. What I was thinking was, what if they come in and they actually try to do this? But the problem is, like Stephen was saying, is they have this, right, we're going to go from the bottom down, top up, whatever you want to do it, and we're going to do this. But on the outside, the media are saying something else. That's not acceptable at Rangers. You need to be good straight away. We'll not accept second place. So it never marries up.
Yeah.
But the thing with Celtic is we need to just stay ahead of the game, and not by just staying ahead of the game. Just push on, do what we're doing. And with the way the 49ers come in and all that, it might be good for Rangers, but I'm looking going, right, how are they going to find a manager? And then this week I'm like, I didn't know you could get Suits and Brogues as a filter on my scout for managers, and this is what they come up. So something's got to change there, because if this is the way they go about appointing managers, Celtic will be fine, but I don't want that. I want Celtic to push past that.
When they sacked Clement, I thought, right, this, if they get someone in notable, this could awaken our sleepy CEO and get things moving at Celtic and get a bit of fire and feel the fire at our backs and feel like there's a real challenge there, because I think really that's the only thing that's going to keep Celtic absolutely motoring on. And then they go and appoint Barry Ferguson. You think that's it? Because immediately, like, I will see Celtic board members probably went, all right, let's see what they do here. Ready to just push the release funds button on the transfer machine. I went, no, it's fine. I'll just, there's no reason. But it'll be interesting to see definitely how it plays out. I think they're in for a horrible time. I honestly do. I think the level of manager we've got, as you say, Melly, he's everything for Celtic just now. The back room and everything that's there. Brendan Rodgers is the one pushing those standards and the players and all that. And it'll be an interesting couple of months for us to see how this affects our planning, how Rangers, what they do affects what we do. I know Celtic will say, well, nothing Rangers does affects what we do. Well, I kind of disagree with that.
Yeah,
I think we saw under the Ronnie Dalla
evidence for
years that that's not really true. So I'm interested to see how it pans out, for us.
Should be hilarious come the end of the season, shouldn't it? Towards the end of this. If it goes wrong for Barry, then what happens then? Because where do they turn the next time something goes wrong? Because it would just be back here. But Celtic need to get their house in order, because like I said, if Brendan Rodgers goes, the same under Ange, it's not always going to be the case that you've got a Brendan Rodgers. Like, what do we do if Brendan Rodgers goes at the end of his 3-year deal, which I probably think he will now?
Yeah.
Do we go back to Ange? And then do we need to get ourselves out of this cycle?
I know. I think you're right, and I think this whatever that's what I'm saying. Whatever happens at Rangers, I think Celtic should be watching with interest. We can sit here all we like and go, ha, lord it up, we're going to win absolutely everything.
Yeah.
But there is part of me that thinks with every Rangers manager that goes, then is the opportunity for someone better to come in. Yeah. Because they don't really... When was the last time Rangers lost a manager to another team? They don't. They just sack managers for being useless.
Well, that's the thing as well.
But did he not leave? Did he leave?
He went to Villa,
Oh, he left to go to Villa.
But that's the point, isn't it? Because when we look back at all these managers, we can have a laugh at Pedro and we can have a laugh at Beale because he was an absolute fraud, and we said it from day one, absolute charlatan. But at some point, you have to look at it and go, right, see, most of these guys, like, they were good managers, but they couldn't do it at Rangers. So like Man United went through a ton of managers. They're not all bad managers. No. Some of them are really good managers. But what's the problem here? It's Man United. And if Rangers sort the Rangers problem and then they get in a decent manager, Celtic are never going to be years ahead, because all it takes is, like we've seen last summer, Celtic to have a bad transfer window, a manager to leave, or the team to be coming to the end of a 3-year cycle where a lot of players leave. It can happen. So that's why you need to keep constantly
bedwetter. I can hear this. I can read the comments now. Call you an absolute bedwetter. But you know, I think we've spoken enough about Rangers. I think it's going to be hilarious. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was when I heard the stories about Barry Ferguson MBE coming in to manage Rangers with the Goon squad. I thought, this is just sort of paper talk. This is all
in Expendables.
This is his mates.
This is his mates in the press, and then all of a sudden it's actually happened. Fair play. That's what the guy wants, but I think in this case it's going to be careful what you wish for, especially come March 16th when they come to Celtic Park. That could be a real sore one. I remember Barry Ferguson said, what was it he wrote? What was it his ghostwriter wrote in his column? Seeing Celtic doing the huddle and lording it up in our faces made me so angry, or something, made me hopping mad, or something they put in. Right. But see, while we're on the subject of people being absolutely shite at their jobs, Alan MUIR, I want the biggest Super Vario World sound we've ever heard placed right here. There we go. Our fantastic editor will drop that Super Vario World in.
Been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has been a while. We sort of made a conscious effort this season to let VAR take its course. No talk so much about
Yeah,
referees and just let it take its course. Because I feel like we made the point last year about how bad referees were and how VAR wasn't working. And it's sort of, Willie Collum came in and things have changed a wee bit. There's seemingly more accountability coming with apologies coming for mistakes and the weekly VAR review thing. And I've kind of felt, well, what's the point? What is the point of just pointing out all the mistakes you make if there's no learning there? And an idea I had that I've not followed through with is there's also no league table of referee mistakes. So
No.
every time a referee makes a mistake, we're all busy. We're all watching the football. We've got half an eye on what's happening with referees. But by the time the week rolls on, you've forgotten which VAR made a mistake, which referee. And there could be referees in there clocking up 7, 8, 9, 10 game-changing mistakes a season. And if nothing's happening because of it, it all seems pretty pointless. So we had this incident against Hibs, and we'll talk about the Hibs game, the whole performance, and this isn't why Celtic lost against Hibs, but it's a major factor. We had AJ cross the ball in, whether it was in or whether it was out, that was debatable, and then Celtic got a goal chopped off. And I want to talk a wee bit about that because that's been another hot topic this week on social media. People, it was in, it was out. Debating whether or not the ball was in or out, Stephen. It doesn't matter if the ball was in or out. That is the whole crux of this, the whole debate, the whole VAR problem. This is the best test case because it does not matter if that ball was in or out. What matters is the VAR didn't know. He guessed. And what we have on the pitch is a referee and we have a linesman. And the opinion of those guys is absolutely fine for 99% of decisions for over 100 years of football. But for some reason, the VAR guessed. He guessed that ball was out and chopped off a Celtic goal. And that is just not what VAR is for. And when I heard the name Alan Muir, I thought, that's not the first time his name has come up this season with VAR stuff. So this should be, I reckon had Rangers not sacked their manager and had Barry Ferguson not appeared at the Rangers training ground today, this would be the number one story of the week. There'd be a lot of focus on what I'm classing as the misuse of VAR. Because that's not what it's for.
No, you're absolutely right. And you're right to point out that very specifically, this is not about the goal should have stood, shouldn't have stood, whatever it is. It's about the implementation of VAR, and it's yet another absolute shambles of this use because look, VAR, the purpose of VAR here is that we can all say what we saw, right, or what we thought we saw. We can all look at all the stills, the very unhelpful stills, let's face it, because some of the stills show one thing, some of them show the other thing. Yeah. The cameras aren't fit for purpose because they're absolutely miles away. The best footage was from the stand from some TikTok account, I'm led to believe, some Hibs fan, I think it was, who posted it. So even at that rate, you're dealing with frame rates of cameras, and sometimes the ball is visible, sometimes it's behind Johnston's legs, sometimes it's a blur, sometimes there are so many factors, there's so many variables with it. Sometimes what you think you saw wasn't the case. Now, I remember being at the Bayern game, and when Dyson scored, I said, oh, that's offside. That's definitely offside. It turns out it wasn't. So your perception can be completely different to the reality. What VAR is supposed to do is remove that factor altogether. That is supposed to provide unequivocal, incontrovertible evidence that this happened, whether it was in, whether it was out. VAR is supposed to point to that and say, it doesn't matter what you think you saw, here is what actually happened. And it absolutely categorically did not do that. We've all seen the examples in England who they have a proper VAR, not like our tin pot version of it, right? So we've all seen what happens where even in the stills you think, oh, is that still touching the line? Is it just over? And then they do that thing where the camera sort of zooms in and it turns into a kind of VR version of it, and you see very clearly that the ball is like 1 millimetre over the line, or it's still touching. Like tennis have got this as well, where they kind of, what's a Hawkeye, where you can see the ball hitting the line. But we've not got that. We've got grainy camera footage shot at like a 45-degree angle from something that is supposed to be judging at the line, right along the line.
Do you know the lunacy of it? Just to dive in here, the lunacy of this whole situation is, as far as VAR comes to, and I'm not got onto this sort of implementation and the person involved, we have got dozens of cameras around football stadiums, right? And someone was able to pull off an almost definitive using an iPhone from the stand. Are we really saying for all these cameras all over stadiums to implement our dodgy VAR, you couldn't just have 2 more cameras along each goal line?
I know, yeah.
It's absurd.
Arguably the most important part of it is the goal line technology, but we didn't bother with that. We can't afford that, so we're just going to pretend it doesn't happen. I think it's exposed a lot of how football is refereed, because let's face it, hardly ever does anyone care or properly implement the whole ball thing. It's all just a guess.
Yeah.
But quite often it's someone's running down the line, it kind of touches the line a wee bit, the linesman just kind of goes, it was out, right, and nobody really cares. There's a couple of grumbles from the stand that are right there looking at it, say, there's no way that was it. And then that's it, everybody moves on. It's when it leads directly to a goal that everyone is just exposed at how this just doesn't work at all. Even like the very existence of referees, assistants, linesmen, whatever you want to call them, a lot of what they do is total guesswork.
Yeah,
and it's only when it comes to this that it's exposed. You've got far side linesmen making decisions on who last came off on the other side of the goal, like 50 yards from where they're standing. They just guess. They just totally guess. So it's not about how they just guessed on this occasion. Mostly it's just guessing. It's all just subjective, sort of interpretations of these decisions. But when it leads to a goal and you can't provide the evidence of what definitely happened, when VAR is specifically for that, it's the express purpose of VAR is to remove the debate.
Should be cleared up already.
Just release the footage, release
That's
the
it.
image, and then that's it.
The whole point, they can't provide the evidence, and that's the only thing that matters.
When watching the game and when it sort of panned out, I thought, I think that was out there.
Me too, yeah.
And I thought, right, I'll just wait for the decision. Then the decision comes around, no goal, right, let's see it. And then you go, no, that's not what they're going to show me. And that was it. And I'm like, right, okay, so again, we've been on here criticising plenty of times that, okay, let's see the VAR footage, and we look at the VAR footage and we look at a referee looking at himself, not giving the decision and going, how did you miss that? But with this one, I'm looking at a camera further back than the linesman, telling the linesman his decision was wrong when he's closer up. I don't know if the linesman got the decision right or wrong, but he didn't think it was enough to call that.
No, that's
either way. And see if the linesman and the referee and the linesman, who are much closer to the decision than the camera, right? They've made the decision. They've both said the same thing. Yet you sitting in a studio with grainy footage think it's different. I just don't understand it. And the big problem I have with this again is, where does it leave us? Because we can moan about it now. The St Johnstone game against Hearts, there was a St Johnstone a goal disallowed for being offside. Like, you can't tell. Remember the Motherwell one for part where Jota scores a goal.
That's right.
How are we
What a
doing
goal
this?
it was as well.
If we're speaking about this individual, I've got a note here. Alan Muir, this season only, denied Kyogo a penalty earlier in the season. Was wrong. It denied Maeda a penalty. I think that was the far part.
Motherwell, we punched it in the net.
That was wrong. And then in this game here, he's overruled the referee, and they can't provide the evidence as to why he overruled the referee. And it's the same guy, by the way, who in the Ronnie Dyler Cup final missed a handball 6 inches from his face.
I thought VAR was clear and obvious errors.
Yeah.
That's not clear and obvious, because you can't provide me with a clear and obvious picture that was out of play. It might have been, it might not have been, but you cannot provide the evidence. So why overrule something?
There's not enough pressure on this, because earlier in the season, even just in the last couple of weeks, the problem is with the news cycle, this Rangers thing has gobbled up all everybody's attention. But I think it was Dundee United and St Mirren both came out against VAR, says that it needs to be independently run. I think Celtic now need to join that. The problem is, as soon as something like this happens, people's inclination, both Celtic and fans of other clubs, incidentally, oh, come on, we should be able to beat referees.
Yeah.
Right, but it's there, and we need to talk about it, and it's interfering with the game, and this is just as blatant as you get, because there is no reason to defer to a worst standard of evidence to come to your decision. There was a linesman right there, and he thought it was okay. No, what we'll do is we'll make a decision based on a camera angle at the 18-yard line, which we all know Gary Neville did a thing on it, and it's been doing the rounds about how from one angle a ball can look out, from another angle the ball can absolutely be in.
Yeah, it's that Japan and the World Cup thing as well. Japan
Which was
versus Germany.
Was that Dyson as well involved in that?
I think he would have been playing at the time, yeah.
Was it Gabriel's goal for Arsenal against Newcastle last season as well? That one that looked out, but then you see the camera from above you were talking about, and it's like millimetres in.
This is what I mean. This is why our individual perceptions of it don't matter. That's not the point. It's the point that they're supposed to be able to provide the evidence that says, well, what you thought you saw doesn't matter. Here it is. And we didn't get that. We get it everywhere else. We get it in England. So we've got this, as I say, diet tin pot version of VAR. But instead of acknowledging that and acknowledging that it has a shortcoming there that is not fit for purpose. It's not fit to be used for this purpose. Judging what's over a line at not the right angle. Instead of doing that, we've kind of just backed that to make the decision over anyone else, even though it's in a worse position. As you say, it's worse.
It needs to be off the VAR. The guy doesn't know.
Well,
The problem is if you display an inability to draw the correct conclusion with the tools involved multiple times a season, and we're only halfway through the season, and already there's 3 game-changing decisions that he's got wrong. It can't be VAR anymore. It's really that simple. And I'm not saying sack the guy and all that. If you think that's too extreme, let him just be a linesman, let him be a referee, let him be a 4th official, whatever. But the guy doesn't know how to work VAR, and if they can't provide the evidence, which obviously they can't, because it's been nearly, how long's it been now? 3 days.
Yeah.
All you need to do is send us a photo. You can do it over WhatsApp if you wanted. And I think going forward, because it's all right to rant and have a moan about these things, especially when we're in the right, as far as I think Celtic are. But sometimes you need to be able to provide a solution. But if someone's pulling a better graphic using an iPhone from the stand, then my question to the SFA would be, how difficult is it to just add 4 extra cameras, 4 byline or goal line cameras? Then you never have this thing ever happen again. And they don't have to be expensive, Hawkeye, this, that, and the next thing. Just a good, clear, visible picture of the byline should do it on every side.
And once again, here's a disclaimer here. This is not, oh, you're top of the league, stop moaning. Imagine meltdown, imagine crying about this when you're top of the league. This is about the running of the game here, and it will affect everyone
this
at some
is a
point.
selfless act from us.
Yes.
We're doing this for your enjoyment of the game, Killie fans or whoever.
Exactly.
Yes,
if anything, should thank us for talking about this.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen.
You're very welcome, and you're very welcome, all of Scottish football, in fact. But again, look, seriously, this will affect everyone at some point.
It does. On a weekly basis, because this comes out apologies every week.
Yeah, so if your position on this is, typical entitled Celtic fans yet again moaning, don't come crying to anyone if it happens to you, because it will. Because all that is a camera angle. It's nothing to do with resources and big clubs.
This will make them feel better. Listen, Celtic were pish, weren't we, Melly?
Yeah, really poor. If you're going to talk about Euro hangovers, you can probably point to this game, can't you? They just look sluggish from the start, didn't seem to get their passes going. Even the guy who didn't play during the week, Greg Taylor, was just sluggish.
Dreadful,
putting Celtic under so much pressure. Carter Vickers and Trusty having really poor games in the first half, and it just looked like what's going on. I think if Celtic had got to half time without conceding the second goal, things might have been a wee bit different, or if the VAR could do their job, things would have been different. But that first half just shows you a bad first half or a bad half can really derail you, and Celtic going in 2-0 had a mountain to climb. Add on top of that the sort of fatigue, and then something else we might talk about, the fact that we didn't use all 5 of our subs again, despite that being 2 games last week where we were trailing and we didn't use 5 subs. So a multitude of things went into it, but Celtic were really poor, and it's not the Celtic we're used to, and such a contrast from midweek where Celtic were the best we've been in years, if not ever, in Europe, to this first half. What happened here? But these things happen, don't they?
I didn't expect it though, Stephen. I didn't expect it from Celtic. I think Brendan's usually get the boys fit and firing, and I did think, if it was a betting man, I probably wouldn't have taken Celtic away to Hibs after a Champions League, just because it is a risky tie. But when I saw the game unfold, I didn't expect us to be that bad. Didn't look, is part of it understandable given the mammoth effort we put in against one of the best teams in Europe just a few short days before?
I think so. I wouldn't go as far to say Euro hangover or it was a direct knock-on from Bayern Munich, because it was Tuesday to Saturday. That's about as good a break as you can possibly hope to get around about this time. Well, I mean, in the kind of the middle of the, well, not the middle of the season, but in the thick of the season, it's going to be games generally twice a week. That fixes itself soon now. We're going to be playing kind of Saturday or Saturday-Sunday for a few weeks there. But I think it definitely had an effect, but coupled with the fact that the squad looks thin now. I know people don't like hearing about it, right? They had a moan at us for addressing this after the transfer window closed, but it slammed shut rather, sorry.
Yeah, get it right, son.
But, the squad's thin, and that's not an opinion now, that's factual, because, as Melly said, Brendan's no making subs when...
It's just counting. It's not an opinion, it's just counting.
Yeah, and there was a game where we're chasing the game at Easter Road. don't bring on Kenny, don't bring on Yang. All these guys where there's a player in there, they'll crack back up for the rest of the season. Don't need to sign a striker, yada yada. So Brendan Rodgers clearly disagrees, and he's not using the squad to its full potential because he doesn't think they'll be able to get the job done.
But he is using the squad he thinks is potential.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. So it's one of those things. It's not the end of the world. However, I would say that if Rangers had anything about them whatsoever, if they hadn't come to this hilarious point where they're appointing these guys, right? If they had anything about them whatsoever, I wouldn't be concerned about it, but I would have a mild concern about the away form just in recent weeks, and not that it's going to derail the season, not that it's going to upset the title race or anything like that, but all going well, Celtic do still have big games to come. They've still got potentially semi-finals and hopefully, all going well, as I said, finals to come in this season. It's not over and done with. And when you look at the away form, since the turn of the year, lost heavily at Ibrox, had that mad draw at Dundee, away to Hibs, and I'm not going to count Bayern Munich and Aston Villa because it would be disingenuous to pretend that
Dundee
those are the same
a
thing.
couple of days before the new year.
Can I just say how mad that Rangers result looks now?
I know it. Well,
mental.
Ridiculous now that they've kind of completely capitulated, but it does kind of. I wouldn't go as far to say there's a pattern emerging, but Celtic are capable just at this moment of having quite sluggish first halves in these away games, and I would. As I say, I would be concerned about it if Rangers had anything about them. If this was a title race in anything but name, then but I would think about it because we've probably potentially quite tricky away games coming up with St Mirren coming up.
Especially after the split.
Yeah, so it's as it stands, we don't have any, but there's the potential to get like a trickier team away from home in the cup. So it's not, these things don't exist in a vacuum. They would be a concern going forward because they're happening kind of one after the other in the away games. It's not been great recently, but I think it was just on this occasion, it was just one of those ones where, combined with the shortage of attacking options that we've now got in central areas anyway, Ida had a shocker, and that's the thing about having one centre forward. I know you can put Maeda in there. Brendan Rodgers didn't want to do that. He was clear about that. And look, Ida had a disaster, taken off at half time. Maeda did better. He scored, but then you're forced into playing a kind of not quite fit Jota. And look, as I say, it's a lot of words for it. We've not got the attacking options required just now. I think that combined with the fact that Bayern Munich was obviously very, very tough indeed. And Hibs were full of confidence and playing really well.
Do you think there's a bit of that? Remember last season when the league was won? And Celtic, the season before, the last under Ange, and the league was won, and performances just basically fell right off a cliff. And Ange was like, "Look, we've won the league. What do you want us to say?"
Yeah.
Do you think there's a bit of that?
Human nature, sort of thing, yeah.
Do you think there's a bit of that because the league is more or less won? We kind of know. I mean, you could be okay. So the Bayern thing, you're coming back. You're probably thinking to yourself, do you know what? Even subconsciously, if you're already tired and you've exerted so much against Bayern, and you're going out away to Hibs. I think, you know what, I could probably give this game 80%, 85%, and even if me personally, I often think this happens in football, particularly with Celtic. Even if me personally, I'm not having my best game, Jota will score eventually. Ida will score. Maeda will score eventually. Like me, I'm not having my best game, but somebody will bail us out here, and before you know it, nobody's bailing you out. And even if that's the individual, the collective thing, maybe. But you know what? Even if we up drawn here, it's fine because we've got 3 home games in a row.
Even subconsciously,
we'll win those. And
possible.
I think after we've all suspected it, haven't we? The sort of the tail off when you think the league's already wrapped up. And in the ideal world, you would like to think that that's not the case, Melly. But after Ange saying it 2 years ago, after Ange just coming out and saying, "Oh, listen, shut up, we've won the league." I do wonder if there's a bit of that, especially with these away games, especially after Europe now. Let me say, there's no Europe anymore. That's over now, and we want to finish strong in the league. That'll be the next challenge for us. We've got the Scottish Cup. We want to wrap up the treble. We want to perform well. We want to get revenge on Rangers in a couple of weeks at Celtic Park.
And that's the only reason I'm even talking about the away form. It's not because I think the title race will go off the rails. It is just that kind of, you never know if you have a sluggish start in one of these cup games. You never know what can happen.
It's difficult to turn it back on once you've sort of turned the tap off a wee bit, isn't it? In terms of performance, like if you can't be sluggish in these away games. Do you know what? Somebody will bail us out, and then Rangers come and think, right, okay, I need to be on it here, or I need to be on it for the Scottish Cup. You need to try and maintain a level of performance as best you can.
And coincidentally, Carter Vickers, Callum McGregor, Adam Ida, they kind of the spine of the team are all pretty rotten on the same day.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, performances like this can happen. I tend to think of it as more a mental fatigue rather than physical fatigue, because Celtic did have 5 days gap, but it's just that effort, that travel, everything that comes about it. And look, Hibs were good on the day as well. We've not forgotten that, and they're on a good run. It is difficult, and this is why we sort of need challenges sometimes, don't we? We need these games to remind us that, do you know what, it's not done and dusted yet, and then your rivals go out and absolutely cake the bed a matter of hours later. But it's just that for day. I always remember my dad when Celtic first won the league under Martin O'Neill, and then performances dipped off, and he just said, look, they've lost the eye of the tiger. And it happens all the time. We see it, football and other sports, when you've got there, you've been going for something, and then you get there, it sort of dips off. But Celtic, they're in a position where they can't take their eye off the ball, because we've still got loads of important games. We've got cup games to win, we've got derbies to win, and we've got Champions League qualifiers to prepare for, so we need to keep this up. But for me, it's more I think it's just a bit of fatigue. Like, this Tuesday is going to be another needless midweek game for Celtic.
At 8 o'clock.
And after that, I think that's us done until maybe one post-split game towards the end of the season. But I think we'll find out where Celtic are in that, because every drop point I can look at, and the game before it, we've played a couple of days before it, or we've had Europe before it, or there's always something, a few injuries here and there. There's always something going on. But what we've seen this time last season was when Celtic were out of Europe, when it was one game a week, we just started battering teams, because we didn't have to do the rotation, we didn't have to change things. And I think once we get in a couple of weeks' time after this international break, Celtic will be back up to speed, and we can maybe just put it down to fatigue. Because even as a fan right now, I'm like, this season's been brilliant. Celtic are doing brilliant in the league, they're doing brilliant in Europe, Cups are going well, and hilariously, Rangers are really, really bad. But I'm still a bit fatigued. Like, a game tomorrow night again, man. It just seems to be relentless, because we've not had that winter break in there. So I think everything's got a wee part to play in it.
Celtic cannot take the eye of the tiger off the ball, in the words of Martin Melly. There we go. Okay, we'll let Celtic off with that one a little bit.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/20minute-tims is where you can support this podcast, get extra videos, extra podcasts, extra writing. We've got content out there all through the week. You can also get this without adverts. It's an absolute no-brainer, and you can support the podcast for the price of a single match day programme for a month worth of content. And free trials are on now. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week.